Here are 3 reasons why I'm still buying Algorand's native token called ALGO. Reason number 1 is because I believe that hypothetically, it has a lot of room to grow. Could you imagine this, right? If let's say ALGO were to go to the price of $5, that right there is around a 40x from here. And now, of course, nothing I say is financial advice nor a guarantee. But if, for instance, in a hypothetical scenario, if I were to put $1,000 into ALGO, and let's say again, it were to go to the price of $5, at that point, that $1,000 could hypothetically become around $40,000. Now, that's kind of crazy to think about, but I think that, if anything, showcases how when it comes to ALGO, it's not a dinosaur. I still believe that the room for growth is still there, hypothetically again. And some people out there, they may think, okay, yeah, when it comes to Algorand, we get it, it's cool and all, but, the market cap would be too crazy at the price of $5. But I disagree. Market cap at that point would be around $42 billion. Not too bad. We've seen Dogecoin reach over $80 billion in market cap. And again, this is considering current circulating supply, so it's not too crazy. At least that's the way I view it. The way to take a look at Algorand is that it's a much safer pick for me when compared to like other very small caps out there, because granted, right, are there projects out there? Are there, for instance, other layer 1 blockchains out there that could potentially outgrow ALGO, during a fully fledged bull run in terms of percentage increase? I think so. But then there's inherently a lot of risk with that, because think about this, right? When it comes to ALGO, it's not a small cap by any means, but then at the same time, its room for growth is still there, in my opinion. When it comes to like Solana, Ethereum, BNB, I don't think they can do over a 20x during this bull run. It's just not possible. I'm not saying in the very long term. I'm just saying right now, again, during this bull run, I don't think so. But when it comes to ALGO, hypothetically, let's say doing a 40x, it still isn't out of the realm of possibility, if that makes sense. So the way to take a look at ALGO is that quite essentially it's the best of both worlds. Algorand is a big enough project to the point that it's very well established, so the risk doesn't feel that crazy. But then at the same time, it's not so big to the point that the room for growth is caca, if that makes sense. So the way to take a look at ALGO is that it's basically sort of like one of the last of its kind, so to speak, right? It's kind of in this unique position where, again, it's not so big to the point that the room for growth is bad, but then it's not so small either. So I think it's amazing because, granted, again, there are smaller projects out there with like a $1 million market cap, with like a $50 million market cap. But then again, the risk is just naturally a lot higher. And I'm not saying that I hate those type of projects. I'm not saying that. Again, I do believe in some small cap projects. And again, I'm not saying they're all bad. But again, of course, Algorand just feels a little bit safer for me. At least that's the way I view it. So that's why I'm using ALGO as somewhat as my foundation when it comes to my portfolio. I don't only just hold ALGO, of course. I hold a bunch of other projects. But again, it's a good foundational piece, if that makes sense. It's like, let's say you build a building, there's like 50 pillars or whatever. It's good to have ALGO as one of my pillars. That's the way to take a look at it, which is why I'm very bullish on ALGO. And I don't think the room for growth is bad at all. Hypothetically speaking, of course, only time will tell. And now, the second reason why I'm still buying ALGO is because I think that when it comes to Algorand, arguably, it's one of the best layer 1 blockchains out there. Now, some people like to say that, oh yeah, when it comes to Algorand, it doesn't really have any difference when it comes to Solana, Avalanche, all this type of stuff. While inherently, a lot of layer 1 blockchains out there feel very similar, I think Algorand does stand out in a sense that it's fully carbon neutral, which is, of course, amazing because, this right here, I think, showcases that it's very environmentally friendly. And I think this right here is going to be beneficial for its future, especially when it comes to being adopted by enterprises, because enterprises nowadays, a lot of them, they want to go green. They want to showcase that they care about the environment. So what is a good way for them to showcase that? It's by adopting, let's say, new technology or partnering up with something that is environmentally friendly, which in this case, I think Algorand really is, because again, it's fully carbon neutral. So I think that right there is very fantastic. And this does give it a unique selling point, because if, let's say, an enterprise, they're considering 2 projects, let's say 2 layer 1 blockchains. One is carbon neutral, the other one isn't, but then let's say the fundamentals are pretty much the same. I think 9 times out of 10, if they actually do care again about going green and all this type of stuff, of course, they're naturally going to choose something that's environmentally friendly, something that's carbon neutral, hypothetically, something like Algorand. So that's the genius when it comes to Algorand, because again, just basically speaking, right, a lot of layer 1 blockchains out there, one doesn't really stand out too much, when compared to the others. I don't think that when it comes to Algorand, it's 90% better than Solana. I'm not saying that, right? But on the flip side, I don't think Solana is 90% better than Algorand. It's kind of like a game of inches when it comes to many of these layer 1 blockchains, because when it comes down to it, when an enterprise wants to adopt a layer 1 blockchain, it just solely comes down to personal preference. It's like, for instance, right? Let's say I want to buy a t-shirt. Does it really matter if I buy from Uniqlo or H&M? No, right? I mean, it's kind of the same thing. That's the way to take a look at it. It just comes down to preference and then also like history and also like brand loyalty in a sense. But yeah, when it comes to, again, something like Algorand, it's playing a game of inches. So, of course, every unique little advantage, it matters a lot. So by being environmentally friendly, carbon neutral, that right there just makes it stand up a little bit more than the crowd. And again, sometimes that's enough to be the winner. At least that's the way I view it. Now, am I saying that Algorand is going to become the number 1 layer 1 blockchain out there in the world? No, I'm not saying that. But at least, top 20, top 30, it's already enough in my opinion. And not to mention, right, when it comes to Algorand, the fantastic thing about it is also that it has amazing adoption. As of right now, Algorand is the technology of choice for over 2,000 global organizations. That's kind of crazy to think about. That's ridiculous right there. Not to mention, right, there's over 500 decentralized applications on its ecosystem. So that's crazy. And even though I don't think Algorand is going to defeat Ethereum ever, that's just my opinion, I do think that Ethereum as a layer 1 blockchain is not as fundamentally sound when compared to something like Algorand, because you got to think about this. When it comes to Ethereum sky-high gas fees, it's arguably not even scalable. Oftentimes, it has to rely on these like layer 2s to kind of fix a bunch of its nonsense. But when it comes to Algorand, it doesn't need that, right? It's already amazing from the get-go, which is why I think it's very fantastic. Now, if people like to say that Algorand is caca and trash, again, I think they haven't taken a look at the data, because if something is the technology of choice for over 2,000 global organizations, I'm not talking about 5, I'm not talking about 10, again, I'm talking about over 2,000. If something is, again, in that category, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's actually very fantastic, and that's why I think Algorand is an amazing pick for me as a layer 1 blockchain. Now, the third and final reason why I'm still buying ALGO is because I believe that a high tide raises all ships. Now, what do I mean by this? I think that as the crypto space does well, I think as Bitcoin reaches great heights, of course, naturally, a lot of altcoins are going to go along with the ride as the sentiment, of course, increases. Now, I think ALGO is going to join that ride because, again, a high tide raises all ships. Again, when that tide raises, a lot of the ships that are floating, they're going to go up. So when it comes to ALGO, I think better days are ahead. And why would this bull run be bad? I don't think it's going to be bad at all. You take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, that's massive. Also, even though I think Ethereum is caca, by the way, I wouldn't acquire Ethereum. But even besides that, the Ethereum ETF, I think, is pretty positive for the whole crypto space overall. So that's amazing. Also, on top of that, according to Crypto.com research, there's over 600 million crypto owners, which is insane. That's more than ever before in history. So I think this bull run is going to be very impressive. As Bitcoin reaches those great heights, like 150,000, let's say, I think ALGO, at the price of $5 at that point, I don't see why not. Now, it's just a waiting game, really, because, again, it's not going to happen like tomorrow or like next week. I think it's going to take some time, like around 6 months from right now, a year from right now. I think things could be very different, because if you take a look at the greed and fear index when it comes to cryptocurrencies, it's around neutral as of right now. So I think as of right now, people are still 50-50. Like, hey, do we believe in it? Do we not? We see some meme coins pumping. We see, this project do a little bit of a good recovery. Okay, what's the future? I think people are still iffy as of right now. It kind of reminds me of near the end of 2020, because at that time, sentiment really wasn't the best. People were still a bit 50-50 because they saw some projects having a good pump, but then some was still doing bad. So they're like, okay, what's going to happen? But I think that as we go to 2025, as 6 months goes by, let's say 10 months, 12 months, it could look very different. So it's just a waiting game, hypothetically. Again, only time will tell, but that's why I'm staying patient. I'm continuing to accumulate ALGO and just dollar cost averaging, anytime an income, acquiring, holding, and just waiting, because I think better days are ahead. Sometimes people like to say that, the way to go is day trading using leverage or swing trading, but that's just not my style. That's never been my style. I don't like doing that. I just like to keep things very simple. And again, when I believe in something, I just continue to accumulate, hold, and I just wait. That's it. And again, ALGO at the price of $5 during this bull run wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And that's why I'm still buying ALGO, because I'm still bullish on it. And I think Algorand as a layer 1 blockchain is very fantastic. And feel free to become a channel member if you want to. That way you can get a prioritized response from me in the comments. And also on top of that, you can use these like cool stickers or badges when you do comment. So I think that's pretty awesome. Also, Make sure to subscribe if you gained value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.